You're listening to Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, the community for the best sales and marketing professionals in the aviation industry. You can't learn to fly just from a book. You learn from other pilots who know the tools, the skills, and the territory. Your hosts, John and Paula Williams, are your sales and marketing test pilots. They take the risks for you and share strategies, relevant examples, hacks, and how-tos. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes so you won't miss a thing.
Welcome to Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, episode number 92, Aviation Digital Marketing. Enjoy it responsibly. And this one was actually inspired by our friend Rocco Cipriano of Aviation Marketing Consulting, right? Okay, so I'm Paula Williams.
I'm John Williams.
And we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is
to help all you ladies and gentlemen out there in the aviation world sell more products and services.
Absolutely.
In this case, responsibly.
In every case, responsibly. No random acts of marketing, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So if you would like to reply to this episode or any other, you can use the hashtag #AvGeekMarketing, and we will do our best to find and reply to every tweet. Of course, you can also comment directly on our blog or in any other way that you like. Send us an email if you'd like it to be confidential, anything you like. We love hearing from you, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the big ideas today are we're going to do a case study of what to do with a $10,000 marketing budget. We are going to hopefully emphasize the point that digital marketing is not a universally successful item. It's not a magic button. It's not an easy button. It's not anything like that. We agree.
And not a silver bullet.
With Mr. Cipriano. But where we disagree is that we do think that it is a very powerful component of a great marketing program, and we're going to give some examples of how that can work, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's start with our inspiration. We thought this was a fantastic blog article because it gets attention, right? It's
got
controversial, and it gets people talking about it. So good job, Rocky. You got this. You've got your competitors talking about this on a podcast, so what are the chances of that? All right. And actually, in aviation, there are very few what I would call true or pure competitors, where one person is tooth and nail against another person, and they're locking horns over the same customers. And I think that's true of us in aviation marketing as well. Every aviation marketing company has its own specialty and its own flavor and its own style. And there's plenty of business out there for the rest of us. We're all competing against the Madison Avenue weirdos, right?
As a matter of fact, we have recommended Rocky on various occasions, and he has recommended us on various occasions.
Absolutely. So, there is no, nothing but love here between us. And actually, we thought this was a really great article. It just caught our attention and got us talking. And we thought, we really need to talk with our customers about this as well. So first of all, the headline, right? Or the tagline. It starts off with a quote. Don't be impulsive with social media marketing. Totally agree with that. And then the quote, social media is like teen sex. Everyone wants to do it. No one actually knows how. And when it's finally done, they're surprised that it wasn't better, right? That's too bad. Very sad. Anyway, and in the article, once he's got you roped into reading it, which that does very well.
Exactly.
He has a hypothetical in there, and this is a great hypothetical, and I think everybody should run hypotheticals in their marketing. What if we did this and we got that result? And he's doing a wonderful job of outlining the results you should expect, the benchmarks that you may set for yourself in a marketing plan and so on. So let's say I run a 6-month, $10,000 advertising campaign for a client in a trade publication reaching their target audience. Assume this campaign reaches 100 leads and the client closes 10. The cost per new customer acquisition is $1,000. Great job on defining that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then he goes on to explain, a social media program in which it's going to cost more and do less good. Okay? So this is where we get the gloves out, right? Okay. it is more complicated than print versus digital, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, I think it's fantastic that you're setting a budget. I think that you're setting a time frame and you're setting an expectation of how many leads you're going to pull in that amount of time, right? So getting 1,000 leads is a great goal, and spending $10,000, getting 1,000 leads and closing 100 of them.
Well, that's not what he said.
That's not what he said?
No.
Let's go back.
He said getting 100 and closing 10.
Getting 100 and closing 10. Okay. Well, that's a reasonable goal as well.
See?
So getting 100.
But I got to keep you on track here.
Getting 100 and closing 10. This is why you're the CFO, right? 100 and closing 10. Okay, but it works with any math you want to use here. We'll use that math. Okay, Rocky, your numbers are accepted and verified by Mr. Williams. Okay? Carrying on. Print versus digital.
And actually, I would wager to guess that you use a little bit of both print and digital no matter who you are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, the first thing that I want to point out is that every medium has its pros and cons, right? Trade shows are fantastic. And they're kind of the king, the reigning traditional king royalty of aviation marketing. Are the results measurable? Usually, depending on how you do it. Does it target people who are looking for what you're selling? Usually, depending on it, whether or not you pick the right shows. Where the concepts that we're talking about here, can you virally spread your appearance at a trade show from one person to the next? No, it only works on the people who are actually physically in the room, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Does it last forever? No, it's just while the show is going on and, whatever follow-up you do from that particular event. Does it target people who are ready to make a buying decision? Not necessarily. People who are going to that show are going to that show for any number of reasons, not necessarily because they want to buy a new widget, whatever that widget is, right?
Exactly. They're mostly doing research.
Exactly.
And when you hear of large sales made at trade shows, those were all put together in advance and done for publicity.
Exactly. Are the results visible this week? No. The results that you hear about at trade shows, like John said, had been talked about for weeks, months, or years ahead of time. They are one of the more expensive versions of advertising in the aviation industry.
Of course.
But they can also be very effective. Now, if we take this same table and we look over at the 5th column in print ads and look at those same criteria, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are the results measurable? Possibly. Only if you put in a good call to action, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do they target people who are looking for what you do? Maybe, if you pick the right magazine. But then again, these magazines are going to people every month, so not necessarily at the time that they're looking for what you're selling.
Precisely.
Okay. Are they virally spread from person to person? You could argue that if I see an ad in a magazine, I might pass it to John and say, John, I want one of these.
But that's not viral. That's only one-to-one.
Exactly. So the chances of it being spread from person to person are slim. Does it last till it's removed? No. You do an ad in a magazine, it gets thrown in the recycle bin the next month.
And that's done.
Yep, absolutely. Does it target people who are ready to make a buying decision? Not necessarily. Once again, they come out every month. Are the results visible this week? No, absolutely not. There's a lead time on magazines, and
at least 30 days, roughly.
Yeah, it depends. When the magazine comes out, sometimes you can get a call, the day that it comes out. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's a possibility. How expensive are they? We put them in the $3 sign category because they're in the $1,000 or more for almost any publication in the aviation.
Oh, yeah. And that'll only get you an eighth to a quarter sometimes.
Exactly. And how effective are they? We put them as moderately effective. So that's fantastic. And then if you look at the digital media, search engine optimization and social media, we're kind of lumping those together as digital marketing, right? That's fair?
Sure.
Okay. So search engine optimization has its pros and cons, and social media also has its pros and cons. So the ideal thing is to really cover your weak spots by using more than one form of advertising, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so any campaign that you put together, you've got pros and cons. So, let's talk about the pros and cons of print ads. The pros are that it's very respected. It's a very traditional media. You can use that borrowed credibility. If you get an ad or an article mentioned in Aviation Week, you can put that Aviation Week logo on your website and say, as seen in Aviation Week, right?
Yep.
That's cool. The cons are the cost of it, and also the fact that aviation publications have been proliferating like nobody's business in the last few years, right?
And a lot of times what they will do is they will look at their target demographics, and if they're not selling enough, they will give away some so that they can say that they got so many out there.
Right, so their subscription numbers aren't what they used to be, their circulation numbers aren't necessarily what they used to be. And some of that circulation may be inflated because they're offering very low-cost subscriptions. We often get advertisements for aviation publications for $1 a month or $10 a month or free, just by proving that we're in the industry. And
we don't prove it, they see that we are.
Yeah, exactly.
And they just send it out to us, so we're surprised sometimes at some of the stuff we get.
Exactly. So some of the people that are getting your print ads are not the same quality that they were 5 or 10 years ago, which is not to say, once again, that the pros aren't worth it in some cases, right?
Right.
Okay. So let's talk about pay-per-click, which is probably the shadiest of the digital marketing stepchildren, right?
Who would love you to hear that?
Exactly. It is fast. Okay, this is the fastest way to get an ad to the right people. If you set up your targeting right and you have somebody who knows what they're doing, you can have an ad out there, in 45 minutes from the time that you have your first conversation with someone that knows what they're doing, or if you know what you're doing yourself. And that really is the kind of the heroin aspect of this, or the sugar rush aspect of this. Is a family show, right? Yeah. We are talking about sex and drugs. Anyway.
All we're lacking is rock and roll.
Exactly. We need some rock and roll in this podcast. So, they are super fast. And if you have an event or a training program or something like that, and you've got one last seat to fill, there is nothing that can beat to market a pay-per-click ad, right?
Exactly.
And when I'm saying pay-per-click, that can be Facebook, that can be LinkedIn, that can be Google AdWords, that can be anything where you're paying money to a digital media to post your ad right now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the cons are that they are expensive for popular keywords. There are really good reasons to do these, but we don't recommend that you do these as a regular, daily, doing business kind of way of going about things.
Yeah, I mean, we've done research before, and we've seen keywords as expensive as $2,639 per click.
Yeah, I mean, that's insane.
Who would do that?
Yeah.
Unless you're selling something for $500,000, I mean.
And have a close rate of, 1 out of 2 or something insane like that. So, if you know what you're doing, pay-per-click can really be a very valuable tool in your toolbox, but it is definitely a sledgehammer that needs to be used very carefully.
And every time we research this, even known keywords that we're familiar with are going up in price.
Right. More every time. It's getting kind of frightening. Okay, so let's talk about Facebook, right? Facebook has numbers that you wouldn't believe nowadays. There's lots of places on the internet that are telling you what numbers of people are on Facebook. You can say, but I sell to serious people who don't use Facebook, like John.
Watch it now.
Chances are the people that buy your product or service either are on Facebook and may not advertise that fact, or they know people who are on Facebook, and somebody's going to throw this in front of their nose like I do with John all the time, saying, look at this thing on Facebook. And they've got coworkers or kids or somebody who's going to throw Facebook under their nose if there's something that's very targeted to them.
But the bottom line is, this is how the individual or small firm can have access to the term everybody uses as big data.
Big data or artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Both.
They have both there, and you have to get into it to figure out how to make it work to its best advantage, but they do have it, and they have some very nebulous instructions.
Right. So, and the really cool thing about Facebook is it's probably the very best way for people who are not in the advertising industry or who are not in Fortune 50 or Fortune 10 companies to have the resources to do things like targeting behaviors. Like you're at Oshkosh and you want to target only the people who are at Whitman Field right now. There is no other way to do that besides Facebook that I know of.
And as far as serious people, we have sold everything from software to jets on Facebook, so I don't want to hear the serious crap.
Absolutely. So I guess you could target the people on Whitman Field by having somebody tow a banner around the field. But
with the drone.
With a drone. There you go. So that's using AI and that's using technology and everything else. But the easy way to do that is with Facebook and to set what they call a geo tagging or a geolocator on your ad, saying you only want to advertise to people who are within this certain location, right? Okay. Also, retargeting people who have visited your website. You want to retarget them using Facebook. That's really cool. So there's lots of things that you can do to target people who exhibit certain behaviors. Who are probably more likely to see your ad and act on it because they are at AirVenture. So they're going to drop by your booth, or they have been to your website before, so you know they're interested in your product or service. So you're not wasting money on people who aren't, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, cool. The cons are that
For
it is not...
those of you that are watching this, she types like I do. That is BY, not BV.
By some, exactly. Okay, fine. Actually, what happened is I didn't make the text box long enough to cover the little tail of the Y. What is that called? The hangy thing on the letter?
Yeah, the anchor, whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, that is not seen as credible by some. So some people are not going to respect your Facebook advertising as much as they respect your ad in Aviation Week magazine.
But the number of people who don't see it as credible is reducing daily.
Exactly. So it really depends on the content and the targeting and a lot of other things. So how do you know what you want to advertise in? The only way that you can tell what's working for you is to look at your last year's results. This is our last year's results. Where did our customers find us, right? And most of them found us on our website, blog, or podcast. And unfortunately, we don't differentiate between our website, blog, or podcast because many people use different media to access that same material, right?
Oh yeah, it would be kind of interesting and long and drawn out to try to
to figure
differentiate that.
Right. So anyway, that's the big blue section, and that is 44% of the people that bought something from us last year found us on our website or blog. A smaller amount than that found us on Google. A smaller amount than that found us on LinkedIn. Then postcards, then internet in general. And this is just what people tell us when we ask them, how did you find us, right? 3% found us at an NBAA education session, 3% on Twitter, 2% on Yahoo, 2% on Facebook. I suspect that's going to be bigger this year than it was last year. 1% on YouTube, 1% at an Aviation Pros show. This was actually 2 years ago, I apologize. 1% on email, and 1% in our online webinars, and 2% miscellaneous. In other words, they didn't remember how they found us, right? Okay. So once you have this pie chart and you've been keeping track for a number of years, you have an idea. But even so, a lot of the people that found us through our website or blog found that website or blog through LinkedIn. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It gets messy because people find you more than once, and they also will only remember the last contact they had with you.
Yep.
So
guilty as charged when I talk to other people when I'm trying to buy as well. So
exactly. Now, this is a graphic that's been floating around the internet for a number of years, and there are a number of people who take issue with it in a number of different directions, either saying that it's the source is not credible, or it's too many or too few or whatever. But it's been quoted by everybody from Zig Ziglar to results.com to HubSpot. So we're going to use this as to prove a point. Whether or not you agree with the data, you probably agree with the fact that most people don't do enough follow-up, and most people don't do enough advertising to sell a product or service. It takes a lot more than once to qualify it, well, to get somebody's attention, to get them to take action, to enter your system as a qualified lead, and to get the attention of one of your salespeople, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and what it says, for those of you that are just listening, 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect, 25% of salespeople make a second contact and stop, 12% make a third contact and stop, only 10% of salespeople make more than 3 contacts, and so on. The bottom line is 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact.
And this is not in aviation. This is in retail.
Retail, right. So in our experience, it is worse than that. Depending on the product or service, and the larger and more complex the product or service, the more touches it's going to take.
Yep.
So in a lot of cases, it'll take 20 or more contacts to make a sale. And those might be that they saw an ad, or they read an article, or they talked to your sales guy, or they got an email, or, right?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we were trying to buy something for our home once upon a time, and I was having this conversation with the sales lady, and she said, "Oh, no, that's not true." I said, "Really? This is the 5th contact with you."
Right. And this was something we wanted.
That's right. This is something we wanted to spend money on, and she got so upset she wouldn't call us back. So we went with a different company.
We're not trying to be difficult. We just have questions, and we rescheduled a couple of times, and things happened, and everything else. But we bought from someone else, and it probably took her 5, 6, 7, 8 contacts, and that was just for drapes, right?
That was just for drapes, yeah.
Something simple. So if you're selling, aircraft maintenance software, or something that is more of a time and money commitment on the part of the person making the purchase, you can expect to be in this conversation for a really long time, and you're going to have to expect that you're going to have to provide a lot of marketing information, a lot of advertising, a lot of contacts to get where you want to go.
This is well like the people you sell to, because even after you make the sale, you need to keep in contact for subsequent sales.
Absolutely. Okay. So you want to do something that is cost effective to contact people multiple times, right? Or for them to find you multiple times. So if you do things that allow you to do multiple contacts, you can adapt as you go. And if you're doing something digital, you can see the results of each of these contacts. So, for example, this is, I put on the screen a screen from our Facebook Insights. And it basically shows some of the Facebook posts that we've had in the last week or two. And you can see how many people saw it, how many people responded to it by either clicking on it or sharing it or commenting on it or so on. So I take the ones that work the best, we make more like those. We take the ones that did the worst, and we make less like those. Mm-hmm. And so we can measure different things like time of day, like headline, like the image that goes with it, like the message, like the offer, and so on. And by testing, we can make this better over time. If you do something where you can only afford to do it once, twice, or 3 times, you really can't adapt well, number one, you may not get the data back. Number 2, you may not be able to adapt quickly enough to make that really worth the money, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So the good news is that you get more than one shot to advertise to people. You're going to have to advertise to people more than one time. The good news is also that you can use more than one media, right? Nobody says you have to use one thing or another.
No, you can use more things than many times.
Right. And our curmudgeonly mentor, Dan Kennedy, says diversity equals stability, right?
That's what he says.
Okay. So if you have a great ad or a great message or a great article or something like that, you can adapt it to multiple different platforms, right? So you can, if you have something that is a great offer or a great story, you can do that as a press release. If there's something newsworthy about it, you can make a postcard, you can put it on social media in several different formats, you can do search engine optimization, create some content on your website about that item and do search engine optimization to get other people to link to it, do all kinds of things to make that reach a number of different people in a number of different ways. So if you've got a great ad, article, any piece of content that you want to use, you want to recycle and repurpose that in a number of different ways, right?
And printed could be one of those ways.
Exactly. Lots of ways to do that. Printed materials, there's lots of options. Website, there's lots of options. Social media, lots of options. If you have a podcast or know somebody who has a podcast, there's lots of options. Webinars, lots of options there, right? So amateurs put one hook in the water at a time, right?
Yep.
Professional people, professional marketers, put multiple hooks in the water at any given time, and they're a lot more likely to catch a lot more fish, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's get back to the $10,000 case study, okay? $10,000, and our goal is to get as many qualified prospects as we can for that $10,000. And one of our options is to, and the one that Rocky suggested is print advertising. So if we look at these 4 publications, and 3 out of the 4 have a quarter-page ad is $3,000 or more. Now, granted, nobody pays rate card. Everybody negotiates, but...
But this is also from 2 years ago, so it's more expensive now.
Exactly. So there's a couple of things wrong with this. Number one is that nobody pays rate card. The second thing is that it is from a couple of years ago, so it's probably gone up. So we'll say those things are a wash. So let's say $3,000, to make the math easy, $3,000 times 4 is $12,000. So we've already exceeded our budget. But
and that's only for a quarter page.
Right. To make that reasonable, let's say it's $12,000 for a quarter page, or let's say we can get one full page ad for $10,000.
Yeah, but that means either 4 issues or 1 issue.
Exactly. So those are our options. We can do 1 ad and spend our whole budget, right?
Yep.
That's an option. And it might work. But your chances of getting 100 qualified leads out of a single contact, if they've never heard of your company before, are slim and none.
Right.
If that's the only marketing that you do in that 6 months, and as in his hypothetical, he said, let's say we have a 6-month period in which we're going to spend $10,000. This is one option.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Another option is we'll be generous and say that you've negotiated 4 quarter-page ads for $10,000. It's a possibility. So you've got 4 ads in the same magazine for $10,000. Also an option, you may or may not get 100 qualified responses for 4 ads within 6 months. Our experience is probably not.
Yeah.
People tend not to be that responsive to print ads. It's not quite that successful. I've never heard of anybody getting 25 qualified leads from one advertisement, right? Because you want to get, the goal is 100 qualified leads, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you're doing the math for me, right?
Well, yeah, especially in aviation. I mean, there are other things where you might, but in those cases, you'd need more than that to make it worth your while.
Absolutely. So once again, that's 4 quarter-page ads. An alternative would be to do 10 articles or press releases for $10,000. And then you would only need to get 10 qualified leads from each of them in order to get to your number of 100, right?
Yeah.
And that's a lot more likely, I think, because when you do a press release, it is seen as people have a different category in their brain for an article than they do for an advertisement, right? So they see an article in one of these magazines that, and often when we do press releases, we find something newsworthy to say about a client or a product or an offer. And, we'll get picked up by maybe 3 or 4 different, for each article, we would get picked up by at least one, usually, aviation publication or financial publication or, whatever it is that we're targeting.
I don't know that we've ever had one that low.
Right. But we usually get at least, somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 100 pickups in credible publications. Maybe not all would be your target.
Well, I know, but I don't think we've ever done low enough to be just one aviation.
Yeah, exactly. So you get mentioned in several different magazines in each of those articles. If you do 10 articles, chances are you're going to be mentioned by some of these magazines more than once. You're going to be mentioned possibly in your local newspaper. You're going to be mentioned possibly in digital media like the Aviation e-brief, and so on.
And you need to be clear, 10 articles, that's not in 1 week, right?
No, 10 articles within 6 months, or you could do it in 10 months is our usual scenario is 1 article a month.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't know that I'd recommend in 6 months, because that would be kind of fast, but
Right.
1 article a month for 10 months is reasonable. And I think that's a lot more likely to get you your 100 prospects, right?
Yeah, besides, I mean, if you need to be looking ahead. You don't just go out and spend 10 grand and expect something to happen in the first 4.5, 5 months.
Right, that's true.
I mean, not in aviation. If you do, then
Mm-hmm.
maybe you figured out how to do anti-gravity units.
Something. Yeah, if you're selling anti-gravity units, I guarantee you're going to have a lot of interest. So if you have one, talk to John. He really wants to get into that. So. But to be clear, or to be honest here, these are not going to be all print publications. In fact, most of them are going to be online publications because most of these articles have an online version. They're going to pick you up in their online version. But then, of course, you can link to that in your emails. You can link to that in your social media. You can send that in emails to interested customers, and you can print those in PDFs and send them to people. There's lots of things that you can do.
Yeah, because every time we get any publication, we get a link back to exactly where and how and what it looks like, and we give those to our clients. So
Absolutely, right. Okay, so that's one option, is to do 10 articles or press releases. Then you have, as we talked about, 10 more opportunities to adapt. You can see which ones get the most response, which get the least. Every time we do this, we'll look at the last one that we did and say, did this work? Did it not work? What are we going to change? Once we have 3, we get really good at seeing what worked, what didn't work, what can we change.
They put a real fine point on it, not to put too fine a point on
it. Exactly. Okay, to put an even finer point on it, for $10,000, you could do 40 social media ads. So that would be 10 months of our social media program, which is about 4 ads a month, in that category. And once again, those are going to be targeted. Those are going to be using the media that your customers are likely to use most, and we're going to be using some of those features like geo-targeting or retargeting, so people who have visited your website and other things. So this is
and if you use Facebook, you can get so granular down to, well, I'm probably overstating it, but what they have for breakfast every morning.
I don't know if they have an algorithm that would figure out what you had for breakfast in the morning. You'd have to
but you can get very granular on what you're targeting.
Okay, and you might say, okay, well, my customers don't use social media. BS. Okay, we do surveys every year that show that a great number of aviation professionals do use social media of some kind. And John will tell you, I don't use social media, but John will also tell you that he does use Facebook, that he does use LinkedIn. Sorry. Slander. Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
John does not use Facebook, but he does use LinkedIn, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I do on LinkedIn. It's been a good thing, actually.
Right. And I have seen you look at things on YouTube before.
Oh, perish the thought.
Oh, perish the thought. Exactly. So, those are things that you can look at. Twitter is actually used more often by other journalists and things like that than by customers. So, there are reasons to use it and reasons not to. We'd have to talk with you individually and figure out what would be the best media for you and what would be the best targeting for those media.
And we can help you figure that out, actually, down to very good reasoning.
Exactly. Okay, and from that same survey, you might say, well, that's all lower level people. That's not founders and C-level executives and things like that. That's all the interns and kids and weirdos, right?
No.
No.
In a word?
Yeah, 40%, almost 40%, 39%. Don't exaggerate, Paula. I've told you a million times never to exaggerate. 39% of the people that responded to our survey were founders or C-level executives that said that they do use social media of some kind, right?
Yep.
Okay. And of those, how often do you log into any social media? 58% said more than once a day. Every time we do this survey, this light blue section gets bigger.
Well, what's interesting, and when you say log in,
Maybe it's how many times
well,
do you
no,
reference?
no,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
once I decided to put the LinkedIn app on my phone, every time you touch it would be considered login,
That's true.
and I just wait until it pops up with little red indicators on it, and I touch it. So every how often that happens is what I do.
Yeah, and a lot of people get alerts from social media, and they respond to those alerts. So, that would be a time.
But that was only LinkedIn because it's the only one I do, and I probably averaged over a month, probably close to once a day.
Okay. So you would be in the purple category, the
Yep.
28% that do about once a day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's just
Exactly.
one social media. So if you got 3 or 4,
Yeah.
it's going to put you in light blue automatically.
Yeah, and I more than make up for your 28%
Of course
because
you
I
do.
log into social media very often, right? Okay, so that's social media. Let's say that you instead do 10 months of search engine optimization. Okay? What you can expect from 10 months of, you say, well, what good will 10 months of search engine optimization do for you?
Well, now this presupposes that you have a decent website.
Yeah, exactly. And
Because we have some that don't.
right. And if you don't have a decent website, then you may want to spend that $10,000 revamping your website. And, we would certainly give you that advice before we would take your money for search engine optimization because, we're not going to sell you something that's broken, right?
I mean, some of these $9.95 a month websites are made with stuff that you just can't go in and tag keywords and put stuff in it without a major rewrite.
Exactly. So that would be like selling you a $10,000 paint job on an airplane that has no engine in it.
We don't do that.
Exactly. So what search engine optimization does is it helps people find you. And as we talked about earlier, most of the people that found us last year that bought from us found us on Google. Or at least that was a pretty big percentage. Most of them found us on our blog or podcast. But there was a fairly large number that found us on Google. And I would suspect that a lot of people that found our podcast and so on found it on Google.
Very likely.
Okay. So a lot of people, especially in business to business, that are looking for something in particular are going to go to a search engine and look for, aircraft maintenance software or avionics, a certain type of avionics especially, because they're looking for something very specific and particular. So search engine optimization can really do a lot of good for you. And 10 months is, people ask, well, what can that do? Here's an example of a site that we did search engine optimization for 10 months. And we got them over 40% more traffic over the previous 10 months. And the other nice thing about search engine optimization is that it lasts for a long time. So, when you have a good site that's performing well and you've got good backlinks and everything else, those tend to stick around, even though, Google does change its algorithm, so you may need to touch this up 3 or 5 years later. You are going to continue to get good results for quite some time. This is not like pay-per-click advertising where as soon as you stop paying, it stops being good, right?
Well, and not only that, these are people that are interested in your product or service because that's what they're looking for.
Exactly. You can't get more specific than somebody who's looking for ADS-B compliance for a King Air,
Yeah, and there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Those are people you really want to talk to if that's what you sell. Okay. So, 10 months of SEO is a good option. So what we really recommend, rather than print media, spending that $10,000, if that's all you have to spend for 6 months, use a variety of media. So this would be a recipe that would depend on a number of things, who your customers are, what your competitors are doing, and a lot of other factors. But we'd probably recommend some recipe that looks like this. Maybe in this case, 5 press releases, 6 press releases, 4 months of social media, 4 months of SEO, and 2 postcards. That would be a really effective package that would help your ideal customers see you everywhere. And it is so much more credible when they see you in a magazine and then see you in their Facebook, and go to your website, and then you retargeted them so that they see you when they log into Facebook, and then they get a postcard from you, and then they see another article 2 months later. That is so much more credible than just a single ad, right?
Or even 3 ads.
Or 3 ads, or 4 ads that are all in the same place. And also you can adapt. So as you can see, as we learned from doing those press releases or that social media, we're adapting to what your customers respond to and not what they don't, right?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So once again, you get more than one shot. You can use more than one media. Diversity equals stability. And I think you have a much better chance of getting those 100 qualified leads out of a wide variety of things that includes digital media.
I'd be willing to bet that you'd get, well, it depends obviously, but over 6 months, if digital versus, I would think at least double to triple.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are not against print. If you had $20,000 to spend, then we probably would advise you to get those 4 ads in a print publication plus a variety of digital media and press releases, right?
An integrated marketing plan.
An integrated marketing plan, absolutely. So for more about the various advertising methods, you might check out episode 28 of our podcast, Print versus Digital Round 1, and episode 29, Print versus Digital Round 2. In one round, print wins, in one round, digital wins, just to give it away.
You gave it away.
I did give it away, but you don't know which is which. So there you go. All right. So subscribe to our podcast, Aviation Marketing Hanger Flying, on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever fine podcasts are sold. And please do leave
podcasts aren't sold.
No, they're given away.
Okay, see?
There you go.
They gotta keep you straight.
And please do leave us a review. That really helps other people find us and get good information about aviation marketing and not be running off doing random acts of marketing, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so enjoy it responsibly and have a great week.
Yep.
See you next time.
See you next time. Ciao.
Thanks for joining us for Aviation Marketing Hanger Flying, the best place to learn what really works in sales and marketing in the aviation industry. Remember to subscribe on iTunes and leave a rating.
You could.